How do you not have those ready? Like, you got to turn anything else up, down, sideways?
Matt Green. Thank you for being a dick. No, I've got to so that this is we are officially live. But I will say here, ready? Kyle Villamore gave me this.
It's cute.
I don't know if it actually works. And I don't have chalk because I would write weird stuff just to.
Your kids don't have any chalk up there?
No, I have street chalk. Do you know street chalk and like chalkboard chalk are slightly different?
No.
Street chalk doesn't like easily erase.
I can see that.
Yeah. No, so I've got, so this is actually one audio, but the two cameras are set up to do two different users in the program that I use, and it creates shorts out of it. But the problem is when I was recording with Sean, the marijuana, did you listen to that episode?
No, I saw part of it.
So he's pretty cool, and I'm actually going on a tour to his marijuana facility
Is that
in
here?
the next couple of weeks. Yeah, in Denver.
Nice.
You want to come with me?
I mean, I'm down.
Dude, it'd be so dope. I was like, I've never seen I've seen illegal grows, right?
Yeah.
And like how sophisticated illegal grows are, but he was explaining like the way they keep everything clean.
Yep.
And in my mind, all I thought about was Breaking Bad, but with like marijuana.
But yeah.
But then he makes,
meth.
I guess they make the oil out of it. They're called oleo or something like that. And they make the refined resin out of it. So he's like, it is a little bit more of like industrial looking. He's like, we have the nursery and like all this other stuff. It was pretty fucking cool. So,
Do they like, I know some of them like crossbreed and like make their own strains.
Yeah, he does. He said he has got legacy. I don't even know how this shit works. Man.
I don't either.
It's like, and I asked him, I was like, so like, did some dude just go walking through the woods one day and like saw a pot plant that looked slightly different and was like, oh, I wonder how this one tastes. Oh, it kind of tastes like blueberries. And then like, you know?
Yeah, I don't know how they've come up with the different strains. And,
and the potency.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I do look forward to the day that I can smoke marijuana after retirement.
Oh, there'll probably come a day where
I think cops should be able to.
I mean, we'll see where it goes, but
I know New Jersey, they're allowing them.
I think I read somewhere else too is starting to allow it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like you can tell when somebody's under the influence of marijuana. So it's no different than like alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Don't show up to work drunk. Don't show up to work high.
Yeah.
And I think the results in New Jersey are looking really good as far as like reduced EVs among police officers. PTSD has gone down. Drunk driving obviously has gone down, and that's to include under the influence of marijuana. So it's like, I don't know.
Well, I do know that I've talked to a couple of DOC guys, and they said that they're starting to allow them to be able to smoke.
What? Corrections?
Mm-hmm.
For Colorado specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah. So
how does that work? Because they're not
without
are they
naming
post?
names, but like there's people I know that work within that organization.
Yeah.
And they've had to try to figure out, I guess, kind of like policy wise, like you know, how they're going to regulate certain things within their units and within their, you know, what's going to be acceptable, what's not, and how they can control it. And
what does he control it?
Just like with alcohol, you have the levels.
Oh, 8 hours. Well,
like, you know, is there, you have to have 8, 10, 12.
Well, if you show up with any at work, I think you're pretty fucked. You know what I mean?
That's a possibility, but you can technically still have alcohol in your system at work.
Yeah, you're talking like after a hangover?
Yeah.
Yeah, there've been some times for sure when I was on military weekends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We partied a little too hard.
It happens.
And we woke up.
It happens.
And thank God we're already on base, but man, like you go into work, you're like, God, dude.
Yeah.
Can't see straight. Am I dehydrated or am I still drunk? And you ask your buddy, hey, come over here real quick.
Back in the day.
You smell it? You smell it on me? You got a breath mint?
Yep. Anything.
Yeah.
Anything to try to cover it up.
Yeah. Thank God I wasn't arming up or anything like that. It was just like stupid UTA weekends, but I know some stories, man. It is weird. I know I just read an article online that said that they're finding out a new way to measure. Is it cannabinoid or something?
I have no idea what the term for the measurement or the.
I guess part of the problem is like alcohol is processed by your liver and through your blood, but marijuana lingers in your fat cells. So it's like if you smoke a lot every single day, you might have a resting level that's impairment when you're not actually under the influence of anything. So they're coming up with a new testing process that is more rapid and more in the moment than I guess the way that they do it now.
So you could be like, you could say you smoked so you have 4 days off.
Yeah.
You smoked 4 days in a row. It could technically be in your system for a day
and
or
say,
two.
Like, say you stop smoking 12 hours prior to your shift. Like, if that's the policy, right? Yeah. You go into work, you're not high anymore.
Right. But it's still in your system.
But it's still in your system because of the fat cells and stuff like that.
Interesting.
But, yeah, it'd be it's not as easy. Well, I don't even know of a time I've ever seen somebody blow, like, at work. I've seen somebody get sent home. And this was in North Carolina.
There's been a few.
We went to breakfast with this individual, and dude, I'll never forget this day because this is, I don't know, week 3, and I'm with my PTO, FTO for other terminologies, and I'm sitting there, and this certain officer, won't say his name, comes in and looking super disheveled, like we had to be clean shaven. It wasn't clean shaven. Came in. And like as soon as he sits down, wafts like sweat alcohol.
Everybody's like,
and he's like leaning on the table with his hand on his face, and he's like rubbing his eyes and slurring his words. His eyes are all glassy, and I'm looking at my FTO or PTO, and I'm like,
is this normal?
Yeah, I'm like,
is this okay?
Like, what's going on? Should I say something? Do I say something? Do I nudge my is this a test? That's what I kept thinking in my head. Is this a test? Are they putting something in front of me to basically be like, hey, you're going to rat this guy out?
Right.
And I'm like, what the fuck do I do? So I'm sitting there and I was like, hey, I need to go to the car real quick. And like, I knew my PTO couldn't leave me alone. So he's like, all right, I'll come with you. He walks out and I'm like, hey, like, is he drunk? And he's like, I think so. And I was like, are you testing me right now? Because this is like super fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is week 2. I can't do this, man. And he's like, no, I'm not testing you. This is just a really, really strange situation for you to be in. And he's like, I need you to stay in the car. I'm going to call the sergeant. We'll take care of this from here. And sure enough, dude was escorted home. I remember this because it was the first time I ever drove a police car by myself. My FTO.
He had to take him home?
Yep. Well, no, drove his car back to the office, dropped his car off. The sergeant drove that officer home. Yeah. That officer was put on admin leave and wasn't terminated or anything like that because of mental health issues that were obviously going on. And that agency did a really good job, not of like protecting bad cops, but understanding that cops are human, and we go through stuff, and yes, we do carry a gun. Yes, we do carry a badge, but that officer had literally just gotten dressed, came in, sat down to eat some pancakes, probably in his mind, not drunk anymore.
Potentially.
Yeah. So
who knows what he was thinking in reality, but
he's probably just crying for help,
But like you said, I mean, even though we have a gun and badge, we're still human. We still have the same issues other people do.
Yeah.
You just
try. I think that's forgotten.
You just try to. Yes, you want to hold yourself to a higher standard and not get involved in certain things, but reality is, we're all humans.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah. I think some of that's like, we have to maintain an image on and off duty.
Yep.
So
you're expected to. I mean, most of the policies say you shall or will do this and act like this or that.
Conduct unbecoming.
On and off duty. It's like, I understand the meaning and the purpose behind it, but let's be realistic here.
Yeah. Matt Green, you've been doing this job for over 2 decades now.
Close to it.
Close to 2 decades.
Almost
yeah.
2. Yep. Feels like it's been 4 times that.
You kind of look older than you've served, 2 decades.
Well, yeah, of course I'm slightly over 20.
No, no shit. I mean, like it's aged you.
Yeah. I don't look as old as I really am, though.
Are you 47?
No.
45?
Nope.
Am I up or low?
You're up, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you start? 21?
2022.
Okay.
So that's giving your answer right there.
Yeah, 41.
Well, I'm 42. I'll be 43 this year.
Okay.
November.
Started in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
That's the accent. I appreciate you dialing it back for my listeners.
I think I've just lost it.
No, you haven't.
Yeah. I think
it's kind of like Matt McConaughey will never lose his twang.
I don't know, dude, because I feel like if you know me when I first came here,
oh, I'm sure,
to now, I think you could probably.
I'm surprised they hired you. Be like, this guy is not literate. He's speaking Cajun. He's not speaking English.
Well, kind of funny you say that, because that usually is what gets accused of me just in general, because I have the accent. I get accused of being ignorant, racist, you name it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the Southern twang?
Just because I have an accent.
Yeah.
People say 5 words to me, and they're like, oh, and you got an accent, so you must be
X,
right?
And you're a white male.
Yeah.
Wearing a uniform.
Yeah. Now, if I go back home, I fit right in.
When's the first time you realized that you were being judged while in uniform? I
would say pretty quick. I mean, even back in, I don't know the specific situation, but even back home.
When I say that, what's the thing that recalls? Either off duty, on duty. Normally like an incident.
Just what people would say when you arrest them. They honestly don't know a single thing about you.
Right.
Right. They have seconds, maybe a few minutes of being around you. And who knows how that interaction is gone. It could be something serious. It could be something, where like you're like, hey, dude, like you shoplifted. I gotta take you to jail. Whatever the case may be, it could be something minor. Is my point. And you're 100% cool, no issues, no nothing. But as soon as you put them in handcuffs, it's just like an automatic switch comes on where they immediately start attacking you. Again, they know nothing about you, but you're the worst human being they've ever met in their lives.
All because you're holding them accountable.
Or because you're a cop in general, and they don't like cops.
I did a paper when I was in college about the uniform, and I have some friends that truly believe that cops are egotistic. And I said, okay, well, give me an explanation. Like, what are you pulling from? Oh, well, you see those videos where they say you're going to respect me. And it's like, okay, so one video that you've watched, have you ever had an officer tell you that you're going to respect them? I've told people, hey, fix your feet, things like that when they tee off, gangbangers when they tee off and stuff. And it's like, that's a sign of disrespect. And then I tell them, I'm like, hey, I didn't disrespect you. Don't disrespect me. But that's I didn't do this to you, so please don't do it to me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's more of like a street code thing. But I've never looked at somebody out of the blue and say, do you see this badge? You know who I am? Yep. You're going to respect me. Never. Ever. But I think it's the uniform. I truly do.
Yeah.
The damn thing hasn't changed since the fucking Jim Crow days of 1950.
Yeah. But what would it change to?
Personal belief?
Yeah. Or, I mean, any sort of idea. Like, what are the options?
Well, you've got two options. You can go full blown tactical, and I'm not going to say, oh, military police and stuff like that, but you go full blown tactical where it's like, oh, that is a street fighting unit. Like, those are the people when I call 911 and there's an active emergency, not like, hi, this is Carol. My neighbor's dog is shitting in the easement again.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's like shared property, but she never picks up that poop.
Yep.
You know, obviously you don't want like hut boys to show up, fucking jump out of a car, take that report. But what I'm saying is like you've
that
got
better not be a report, by the way.
Certain agencies.
It better not be a report.
You just shouldn't have them respond to that type of call. I'm talking about, hey, there's an active fight between 4 people at this park.
Sure.
All right. You show up, you have this obvious presence of like, I'm going to handle some shit.
Yeah.
And then, so that's one. And then number 2 is like a more relaxed approach. Like polo, obviously it says police or something on it. But just polo, fucking khakis or something. Not like, I'm just thinking of, and we'll leave our agencies out of this, but I'm thinking of our 2 agencies and they both wear like really dark colors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very classic looking outside of, we're kind of moving into more of a uniform C style where it's like the plate carriers and stuff like that. I just don't think that's feasible in everyday situations, you know.
You talking about the polo or the?
No, the plate carrier.
Oh, the plate
To be
carrier.
honest with you, like if I always think about this because I have 2 plate carriers in my car. I've got the one that I have to wear because it's a uniform, and then I've got a level 4 plus plate carrier that has like my mags,
Mm-hmm.
has, you know, my logo on the front that says who I work for, identifier in the back, and that's the plate carrier that I'm literally going to take off my one plate carrier that I have to wear with the soft plates. And even though I have rifle plates that are on there that are rated to 4+ with the soft plates, I would rather just wear my 4+ plates. One, because I have more maneuverability with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's kind of funny you mentioned that, and this is not a advertisement for any particular
Brand
or company, but
no.
There is one that their new outer carrier vest, you can actually attach and detach certain
things.
So you can have it set up, so you can have multiple setups, and then we'll say your everyday patrol function.
Yeah.
You have this particular one you wear, and it has just your extra mags, handcuffs.
How do they do that? Velcro?
It's a magnetic Velcro.
No shit.
Yeah. And then like say you're going to a particular call where
like
you might need something extra or more stuff. Just disconnect it. Go on the next one. You still have the same necessarily body armor, but
you're not taking the time to take something off,
right?
Which is kind of like my
dilemma.
Full
stuff,
right?
Yeah.
Is like, at what point do I realize like, okay, the 10 seconds it's going to take me to take this off and put the other one on is not worth me putting that one on.
Yeah.
And like, in I can easily answer that. School shootings, right? Like if there's a school shooting, I don't care if I'm wearing anything. Like I would rather go in there and have them try to kill me for whatever period of time, have them waste ammo on me, have them hide from me, whatever stops the killing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have to neutralize the threat. I just have to get them so focused on me that they stop killing other people. Like that's my only goal.
Sure.
But there are situations where it's like limited resources. We really shouldn't be taking these calls, but like say there's somebody with a warrant that stated they're going to shoot it out with cops the next time. SWAT's not available, or because of exigency, we can't wait. Yeah, I'm going to take that 10 seconds, take off my soft plates and put on my actual rifle plates.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but there's always that mindset of technically any call can go sideways.
Oh yeah.
Even the ones you think are like, nah, whatever. Like I don't need rifle plates for this one. Next thing you know, you show up and you're in a gunfight.
Yeah.
So there's that mindset
I don't know,
of
man. Cover. I feel like, dude, in the military, we stress so much about cover, so much. In law enforcement, we don't talk like we talk. Oh, make sure this is what cover is, and this is what concealment is. Okay, but we like how often are we actually training like normal situation? Oh shit, it turns into a gunfight. Immediately, you should have already pre-scanned, but like knowing where your cover points are,
sure.
you know. In the military, I will say law enforcement, in my opinion, in my experience, is harder than the military because in the military you have an objective.
Yeah.
Like you're going from one location to another location to achieve an objective. With law enforcement, you're just showing up and going, "What the fuck happened?"
Right. Yeah.
And
you get there and you're tasked with figuring out what happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
Should I be wearing the counselor hat? Should I
Yep.
be wearing the I'm about to get in a gunfight hat? Should I be wearing the investigator hat? Like
Mm-hmm.
what hat am I wearing? And it's like changes on a heartbeat. So I do get that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a slight animosity towards just the uniform. And I know it might seem subtle, but changing the uniform to more of a casual look, I think will change, in addition to changing like I hate the word culture. I think it's a catch-all that doesn't explain it, but like also changing like the approach to policing,
Yeah.
right? And that's not like a hug a thug mentality. Because I left a certain agency because of a hug a thug
That's what they want.
mentality. Yeah. They being,
but that's also part of the problem.
who are you referring to as they? Society?
Yes, that's what they want, and not realizing that that's not in reality. That's not how that works. Like that's not a realistic thing.
How so?
Um,
Either personal examples in the news.
Kind of like what you were getting to earlier, where it depends upon who you stop, who you contact, there's who you arrest. There's certain things that they do that their whole goal is to, at minimum, disrespect you as much as they can, because that's how they were taught. That's how they were raised. That's how they
get cred.
That's what they've learned over the years of being in certain environments and being around certain people. So their goal is to do whatever they can to have leverage over you, to be one step above you, to have the upper hand. Yeah. So if we start coming across all the time, and I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for certain things to be different. Sure, there always is, but there's also a time and a place for it to not go that way.
Do you think that's police? Do you think that's a law enforcement function to fix that ideology? Do you think law enforcement, so do you think the disrespect towards law enforcement is something that law enforcement can correct?
I think there's a role, but I don't think it's the sole answer.
I don't think it's possible.
The majority of it is not up to us,
right,
as law enforcement. Again, there's a small portion or a role that we can play in just proving to people that, and not that we should have to, but unfortunately, it's like with anything in life. Yeah, you may have to go above and beyond to show people. It's like relationship. It's like friendship. It's, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you have to go above and beyond just to prove a point that you're not what you're being made out to be. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's up to that other person to make their minds up and to do different and to be better. And it's the same concept, in my opinion, of, again, to me, it's human nature, just in general, to have those thoughts and feelings and beliefs, and then it's up to you to change it.
Yeah. Confirmation bias is huge. And I think a lot of people do point the finger at a police officer, and we are held to a higher moral standard and a higher standard in general. So yes, our job is to do more than you. Our job is to bridge that gap more than we expect you to bridge that gap. Sure. What my issue is that I mean, have you traveled to Europe and stuff like that?
Yeah, a few
before?
times. Yeah.
Outside of like the UK and stuff like that, they don't normally call the police officers for like minor
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I mean, you're there for legit police
Yes.
matters.
And they are very quickly to show up and tell you this is not a police matter.
Yeah.
And they leave.
Mm-hmm.
In America, I just finished a call earlier tonight where it's like the entire 30 minutes I was on that call, I just played with kids. And I reassured this child, like, no, your dad's not a bad, he might have done something wrong, but he's not a bad person. We're not taking dad away.
Right.
If we do need to take him away, we're just going to talk to him longer. I'm trying to explain this to a 4-year-old and try not to traumatize this kid. Right. I think that's part of our training and our customer service in America when it comes to law enforcement. What I mean is it's not our sole responsibility to fix the disrespect that we get, is because I think a lot of it falls on the family to fix.
Sure.
I think a lot of it falls on society.
Absolutely.
At large. I'm not saying, like you said, I'm not saying there's not a certain portion, but I don't think it's, I think too often they look at us and they say, you need to fix this.
Well, and I've had friends from back home that I grew up with, all different races and classes. I mean, you probably know a little bit about it from where you're from, but when you have that mixed culture, mixed demographics, which we had in Louisiana, you kind of grow up and learn different aspects, but you also have people different, friends with different groups of that, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've had friends talk to me about how they just, some of the issues that they've come to believe or view police as, or certain groups of people as, come from their parents or their grandparents,
It's
or
passed down
things that they've read. And I ask them, I'm like, hey, have you ever experienced any of that? Any of the things that we're talking about? Any of the things that you've seen on TV, reported in the news, as which we all know how that's skewed, greatly skewed, right? But I'm like, have you yourself dealt with some? And they'll come up with some weak. Well, there was this one time on a traffic stop where, the guy kept telling me to do this, this, and this. I'm like, do you realize why he might be doing that? Well, no, I just know that, my family has had experiences and they told me about this, this, and this. And I'm like, have you experienced this? Because we can all talk about what somebody else has claimed to happen to them or claimed was done to them. But one, you don't even know if that's even true. And two, I can tell you from working at the department where those people came from, yeah, certain things were different back in the day. And I say back in the day, that's, 04 is when I started, but, and things have changed a lot, even since 04, but they were already changing before then. Right. So I'm like, okay, maybe you talk about like maybe your parents, if they're older, but definitely your grandparents,
80s, 70s, 80s.
But like, we're talking about a different world of policing, So my question to you is, what have you experienced? And can you really say that you feel certain ways because of your own experiences or somebody else's? Because it sounds like you're saying it's somebody else's experiences.
Right.
So my challenge to them has always been like, don't view it that way, because one, policing is not the same as it used to be. And probably in some ways, not always, but some ways it's for the better. But don't judge people now based on what other people have told you they've experienced, because one, like I said, we don't even know if it's even true, but two, it's a different world.
Well, it's that confirmation bias that I was talking about, right? Like if you hear something and you go into a situation in your mind, even if it takes so much mental work to sit there and tell yourself, I know I heard this, but this isn't the case right now.
Yep.
It takes a lot of work.
Yep.
And when people have emotions going with that, fear, like fear is a real thing, man. Like when a cop is behind me and I'm driving around and I've done nothing wrong as a police officer myself, I start getting nervous. I'm like, oh man, he's going to pull me over. Why is he sitting behind me so long? Let me get out of this lane, move over to the right lane. They get behind me in the right lane. I'm like, I'm getting pulled over. I'm like, and I'm waiting for it. Then they get in the left lane and they keep driving. I feel fear.
Absolutely.
So let alone like anybody else that might be experiencing that. And you know, it's try to combat your confirmation bias when you're in a fight or flight state. Not gonna happen. Or if it does, you are a specimen of a human and you have superior mental capabilities. And my hat's off to you.
I would agree.
When did you move out to Colorado?
I moved out here in 2009.
Okay, so law enforcement for 5 years, right?
Yeah, it was like
so 04 to
5 3/4.
Why'd you leave Louisiana?
One, I've always wanted to live in Colorado. It's not so much the case anymore, but back then, well, even before then, right? I mean, because growing up,
it was a conservative state.
Yeah, it was a nice,
conservative as in the sense of like, I should clarify that because I don't want to be decisive on this podcast as much as possible. Conservative in the sense that for the most part, conservatives will hold people accountable for crimes that they commit. Whereas a liberal state have oftentimes implemented policies and laws that don't hold people accountable that should be held accountable.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
Continue. Sorry, I just want to clarify that before I get people like, oh, what the fuck?
No, so, growing up as a kid, I came up here almost yearly, if not yearly, from the time I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old.
With who?
My family, just to snow ski and just thought it was, the mountains were just the greatest thing ever. And they still are. I mean,
they're magnificent.
If there's one thing that still attracts me here and keeps me here, it's the beauty of the state. I mean, snow, the mountains, although I am over the cold and snow, but that's a different topic.
I want snow, but I want it to be 50 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. So growing up, it's a place I've always wanted to live and be, but you're also young, you're naive, you don't know what the truth is. And then once you actually get here and you start seeing how things have changed, politics, stuff like that, and you're just like, okay, this is not what I thought it was. Had I had researched and done certain things prior to all this, maybe I would have chose elsewhere, but
Idaho.
I don't know. I don't know if Idaho was even a thought back then. Honestly,
I didn't realize how pretty it was.
Now.
Yeah, I didn't realize how pretty it was until I was already out here.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, Idaho is pretty. Look at all the rivers,
but it's still cold, and you still get a lot of snow.
Still very, very cold.
So, but anyway, so I had the opportunity to come up here with the case I was involved in, and I was already looking. Me and a buddy of mine
testifying up here or something.
I didn't actually have to testify, but a buddy of mine who was involved in the case, he was kind of the main guy. He was the main guy involved in the case that we were all involved in. He had to come back and forth for the trial, so he was like, dude, he's like, come check this place out. And him and I became friends in the academy back home, and we were already talking about
bouncing,
getting out. Yeah. And he actually wasn't from Louisiana, but came there through the military and got on with the police department there. So, but I was from there. So me leaving my hometown and, stuff like that was a little bit of a
shock.
I was like, man, like
you're leaving a lot behind.
Am I really going to do this? But so he was kind of used to it though. He had military, he wasn't from there to begin with. So he was all about it. And of course I was too, but it was just like that slight hesitancy to be like, is this worth it? Is this the right move? And if it's not, I'm stuck, but you did it. And here I am, however many years later.
Yeah. And then so when you got out here, uh what have you done in your law enforcement career? You were a patrol for a long time and then went canine.
Yep. It's essentially the two things I've done. There's really only been a couple of things I've truly been interested in, and NARGS is one of them, which I don't think I can even do NARGS now because,
You look too much like a
yeah,
cop.
I
Do you grow your hair out, get that scruffy beard
mean,
going?
this is kind of,
No, I'm talking like down here.
no, there's no
Oh
way, dude.
yeah,
Like,
dude.
it would be so ugly, and I mean, it'd be white trashy for sure.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
You could definitely
that
pick
actually
up
may
some
work
fentanyl.
well,
Yeah.
but
Or actually, if you showed up like this wearing a suit, not the buzzed hair, you need to
yeah,
get rid of
I have to
that.
grow
But
my,
like,
which I can't
you could
do, man.
definitely like walk up and be like, "Yo, you got any coke?"
Yeah,
People be like, "No, but I got this fentanyl." Be like, "All right, dude.
uh,
Like, is it similar to cocaine? No, it's more like hey, Ron."
the hair on.
Yeah.
Um,
So you've been in it for a long time. How many administration changes have you gone through?
between both departments.
Well, there were three.
Technically three, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, but
The listener. So I do want to clarify too, because I've done this a lot in podcasts and I haven't clarified before. The reason why we leave agency names out is there's a lot of department policies, like we were talking earlier about like conduct unbecoming and stuff like
yeah.
that. They can't really hold you accountable if there's no association. So I've got no association with the agencies that I've ever worked for. I've stated in the past the two that I've previously worked for, but it gets a little hanky when you talk about the one that you work for currently. Sure. So we'll leave names out of it, but yeah, technically you work for three.
Yeah. So at my first department, there was probably, off the top of my head, I can probably think of three
Administration changes in 5 years.
in 5 years, almost six. Yeah.
That's pretty high turnover.
Yeah. And then my second one, which is technically where I'm where I'm at now, there's been
you went A, B, C, back to B. You're working at agency A, moved to agency B, went to agency C, and then went back to B.
Correct.
Yep.
So like I said, probably four that I can think of. Well, if you're counting, if you're counting actual chiefs, or are you talking interims included?
Interims included, because that's like a placeholder, man. You know what I'm talking about?
Then it's probably
a lot.
It's probably double that at just the current place. But
how does that? So what I'm getting at is like direction of an agency, right? Because that shit affects line level.
Oh, absolutely.
Not even just in policies and procedures and like how we do things, operate, but like I remember when I moved to agency B, right? And I'll never forget this. I asked to patrol a certain area and I was like, hey, I want to do this stuff because I was proactive in North Carolina. And my FTO at the time said, we're not really doing that because we're not too happy with so-and-so right now. And I was like, the fuck does that matter? Right? Like, I'm a cop. I'm going to go do cop stuff. And my experience there was, well, you need to prove yourself here. We don't care about what you did in the military. We don't care about what you did at your previous agency. You need to prove yourself here.
Which I got the same thing.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
It's very annoying. It reminds you to stay humble. Like, and that's fine. I don't mind being humble. But what bothered me is like, don't discount everything I've done in my life up to this point. Because up to this point has been, I've lost friends. I've sacrificed holidays. I've done so much. So for you to take all that and just completely discount it.
Well, and not only that, but I think the majority of us who have been in this for a decent amount of time, you don't have to be, 20 years, but a decent amount of time, realize that certain people with certain knowledge and certain skills, experience, are valuable to your departments
in those areas.
Right. Well, it depends on what it is. Like just experience in general makes you valuable in a lot of ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
On every level. But like your skill set, your education, your training, stuff like that. Yeah, certain aspects of the police department or departments, um,
Better suit you.
well, they better suit you, but they're also, in my opinion, they're better for the departments because you have people who have the training and knowledge and skills from not only stuff they've done at the current department, but from where they've come from.
Yeah.
Which things are always different no matter where you're at. It's still policing,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, your experiences in North Carolina are different from experiences in Colorado.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So for some agency to be like, nah, you got to prove yourself here. It's like, okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but like you said, don't discount or discredit what I've done, what I've been through, and what I have to offer to this place, because it very well could be something that could be a positive and a plus, and not just look at it as, oh, well, you know.
That's not how we do it here.
Yeah.
That's what I heard a lot.
Yeah.
That's not how we do things here. And I was just like, okay.
And that's fine.
Can we change how we do things here?
But at least have an open mind.
Yeah.
To listening and learning and looking into what other people have to say and offer before you go, no.
Yeah.
No.
So did you so during the administration changes, when you first got in, pretty green, excited to do the job, and I'm kind of feeding this because I already know the answer, but like let's talk about times that weren't so great.
Okay.
Let's talk about times that take a mental toll. I don't think, were you ever involved in an OIS, officer involved shooting?
Not directly. I've been on scene with one.
Okay.
But never, actually a couple, but
during
never,
K9?
No, actually none during K9.
Why did you pull the trigger?
No, I take that back. I was involved in one in K9.
Were you just holding the dog as a backup?
No, at that particular time, I was trying to jump back in the car after throwing my dog back in the car before we got rammed.
Okay. I think, are you allowed to talk about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, that's been
well cleared.
That's been years ago. I mean, that was probably 19.
Okay. 2019, 2018,
yes.
2019.
Yes.
Not 18, 19 years ago.
No, yeah, not like a long time ago. Yeah.
So walk through, I guess, what the call was. What it come out as?
So this is back when we first got Star Chase, the little deals where you can tag,
we won't talk about it.
Tag certain things.
Yeah.
But
we won't talk about how it's done and stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't want criminals to listen in on this and be
so
like, ooh.
We first got this device, and we were able to do some things and do some surveillance on some cars. We ended up following this car a ways out of the city, and we lost it. By the time we ended up finding it again, it had turned around on a dead-end street and was coming.
What was associated with this car that was so interesting?
It was a stolen car, and I don't remember. I want to say it was. I'm pretty sure it was a part of this crew that at the time was responsible for not just stolen cars, but they were out robbing people, carjacking people. So again,
so how did you find this car to begin with? Was it like a license plate reader that kicked off?
Potentially, and there was a particular captain at the time, who is now a chief somewhere else, who was.
I would love for him to be on my podcast.
Who was Johnny on the spot with anything and everything in the police world. I mean, he's just one of those guys that
he's
an
amazing person.
Or he found it. Yes,
he's an amazing person. I don't want to mention his name just out of respect for him.
Yeah,
because I didn't talk to him previously. But dude,
and I can't remember if this is one of his, but we knew who this crew was because of him.
Okay,
right. So when we found the stolen car, we knew it was involved in that with that crew.
A lot of bad stuff.
Yeah,
not just the stolen car, but like a lot of attached to it.
Which and if you want to get into that whole theory of stolen cars, we can always talk about that.
We'll chat after you finish this story, because that is a good aspect to talk about. That's embarrassing. All right, we're back. I don't know where we stopped, but
I would be embarrassed too if I were you.
I know. God, this studio, I'm telling you, one man's shop and fucking falling apart. So we'll start with the vehicle, because I think that's close to where we ended. I don't know.
It was probably before that. It was before that.
I'll just like DJ scratchboard it, and like I'll fix it. I'll get it edited. This is going to be a project for me to blend. So we're talking, I don't know where it stopped for listeners. The video just cut out and the audio cut out. If you're looking for a job as a producer, let me know. Shoot me an email. More than happy to pay you with experience. But going into like OIS stuff, officer involved shootings, just like things that can really put a damper on mental health.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there was an incident where oh shit, I'll bloop that out. Shit, I'm falling apart, man. I had one glass of whiskey and it's just like crumbling.
Here, no more.
Yeah, exactly. Cut me off.
It's not even a glass. It's like,
is it 2 fingers?
I mean,
it's kind of 2 fingers. Watered.
Yeah.
So you had an incident where a license plate reader was picked up on a pretty bad car. So it was a stolen vehicle with associated robberies, other person crimes. If that's hurting your head, you can expand it.
No, we're good. It was just adjusting on the ears.
Okay.
It's like playing Call of Duty. I'm good.
Yeah. Dude, I've been playing the new one. We'll chat afterwards. Fucking tense. Zombies?
Yeah.
Oh.
I just play Warzone.
Zombies? Well, there's like a new zombies. There's a new zombie one. So anyway, certain captain at the time, now chief at a certain agency, who we both hold very highly, which is, for the civilian listeners, is pretty hard.
Yeah.
As a command staff, to be held that high in regard, says a lot about your character.
Yep.
Says a lot about, I think character's a good statement there.
It kind of covers
everything.
Yeah.
On duty, off duty, just as a person.
Yep.
So anyway, you get a notification of this vehicle.
Yeah. So
we get behind it.
We end up following it into way out of the city. Which, at the time, we had unmarked and marked, and but we ended up losing it. We actually had another agency that was involved because we were in their jurisdiction.
Oh, okay.
And so they were actually kind of taking over the whole following thing, and they're unmarked. So we lost it, ended up going down the street we last saw it in.
And you were K9 at this time?
Mm-hmm. And by the time we found it, it had blacked out and went down a cul-de-sac, dead-end street, where it turned around. And I guess it saw other cars kind of sitting there, so it turned its lights on. And one of the other agency cars tried to kind of pull and kind of do a roadblock, but it still had it, because you have to be able to give them an avenue out.
Sure.
Because at the time, it was just a stolen car with suspicion of being involved in the same crew that was involved in all the other stuff.
It was like an alert, like a, hey, be aware, so
correct,
that there might be more than just a stolen vehicle.
Yeah. So he then veers around that car, clips the tail end of the car.
The police officer's car? So stolen vehicle goes around.
Has to go around. Of course, we're all lined up on one side of the street.
Sure.
Kind of sitting there waiting. The police car that pulled in front of him tried to make him stop. Gets clipped. He then just floors it. Goes around into people's yards, run over fences. And I'm thinking, okay, well, he's going to get stuck because he's in people's yards.
What's he driving?
It's a F-250.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so he had a...
You ain't going to pinch that. You're not going to pinch that car.
He had a pretty good vehicle to be running from the cops in.
Yeah. Shout out to Ford.
So he starts going through people's yards. I think, okay, this guy's going to get stuck. There's trees, there's bushes, there's all kinds of stuff in the way, fences.
Yeah.
So I get my dog out, and we're kind of getting ready. We're taking cover behind my vehicle, and I'm thinking he's just going to eventually get stuck and bail out, and we'll be already on foot, and we'll just be able to chase. Didn't happen. He kept going. So I'm seeing this. I'm like, he ain't stopping. So I throw my dog back in, and then just as I'm getting in my door, he's bearing down on me head on. So I literally just had enough time to shut the door as he veered last second and just took off basically the front driver's side bumper and went down the whole side of my car. So it took off, mirrors and, on the whole side. But anyways, so he did that. And as he's passing, I'm making sure, he's clear of me. There was another officer who he was actually a buddy of mine from my old department in Louisiana who had come up since then.
Not the same one that you came out here with.
No, a different one.
Okay.
We've actually had 4 or 5 that came from my old department. That came
Did you pull them?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, the water's pretty nice out here.
And it was.
At the time?
It was at the time.
Yep.
So he had parked kind of a few cars behind me. He was actually running up to me because he was also familiar with dogs. So he was like, I want to go up there with Matt and
I'll be your cover.
And when I can cover him. So he actually took cover and ran behind his vehicle when he saw the truck continue to run. So the car hit his police car head on and just kept flooring it, just whoa, and was pushing his car. It pushed the car into him. So he had to come out from behind it. And when he did, the truck tried to veer towards him. So he unloaded on him. Unloaded on him. He fired, I don't know how many rounds.
Yeah.
Just
only carries most of the time 18.
Yeah. I don't think it was even, it was probably just a few, if I can recall, but, cause he was in fear for his life. Cause the dude was driving a big old truck.
Well, dude, take his actions prior to even touching your car. Right. The total disregard for human life. Because at what time of day did this happen?
Oh, it was definitely nighttime. It was well into the night hours.
Like 2 o'clock in the morning, though?
No, not that late. Probably
not that late.
Probably 10, 11,
Somebody could be walking out to their car because they forgot to grab their lunch pail.
Yeah, potentially. And it was probably on a weekend.
Yeah.
Just because that's usually when.
Yeah.
And at the time I was still working on the weekends. I had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. So if I was working, it was probably a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So there's people out and about.
Yeah. So
sure.
take his previous actions, just complete disregard for human life, driving through somebody's yard, probably at fast speeds, going towards you, crashing into your car, crashing into another police car,
over fences, through yards. I mean, just zero regard for safety at all.
What was your reaction when you heard the pops?
To not even worry about the dog, just leave him in there and go that direction.
Did you think they came from an officer, or did you think they came from him?
I didn't know. And that's why I was like, this isn't a dog issue now. This is a potential guy who's shooting.
Yeah.
And I've got to figure out where that's happening at.
What was your thought process when that was happening?
I mean, dude, it was all so fast and like sudden. And as soon as you heard them, it was over. So I never heard any more because there wasn't any more. But at that point, you start to kind of see what's going on. Things start slowing down. And then you realize, all right, so he's still in the truck. My buddy's okay. Now what? What do we need to do now? Kind of thing. So then that's when, I got the dog back out. And then we come up with a plan to get him out of the truck. Because we don't know if he's hit. We don't know if he's alive. We don't know what his status is. So then we have to figure out how to get him out of the truck safely because he's not coming out on his own.
What's going on with the truck at this time? Is it still like driving somewhere? Or is it
no? He had floored it and gassed it so long and hard that he was actually sitting on top of the police car hood.
Oh,
So his front wheels and axle were on the push bumper or hood. He couldn't go anywhere. He was stuck.
fuck.
So the engine was just
Yeah, but try to get him out of that too because it's elevated.
Yeah, so the engine was literally, and come to find out, it was because it was like his last like physical natural reaction to being shot. He had floored it, and his leg or foot had gotten stuck there. So we thought he was still trying to get away because it was just. So
For
we're
how
like,
long?
oh man!
Until you pulled him out?
No, it eventually the engine just quit, and at that point,
How long are we talking?
I would say at least a few minutes of just pegged.
Of a diesel.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So it eventually just, the engine quit.
And then what?
And then it was like complete silence. And then we were like giving him orders, no response. We could see him in there.
Because the window broke at this point, or?
I don't remember. I want to say yes, because I think the shots were fired through his driver's side. No, the driver's side.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it was one of those things where like, is he now, are we talking about like a barricaded, or is the guy just unresponsive and potentially dying and we just don't know it, right? So
yeah, want to save him if we can.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, but you can't just rush in.
No.
So you gotta.
Is this an ambush?
Yeah.
That's always the question. Is you always prepare for the worst situation.
Yeah.
Priority of life scale is huge in law enforcement. I feel like, I feel like I wasn't taught that very early. I feel like I should have been taught that sooner, and maybe I just glazed over it in the academy. But yeah, there's been a lot of times early in my career where I did place a suspect's life higher than mine.
Yeah,
and it saved them. But
well, and yeah, I mean, there's obviously certain times where you can do that.
Yeah.
And it's not even something you even think about, right? You kind of recognize the scenario and the situation you're in. You're like, this is something I can do now, as opposed to
later.
That particular scenario was, this is something we need to be careful with, because we've already seen what he's willing to do.
Yeah.
So, and we don't know what he's doing currently.
Was that the first time you were ever involved in like something that high profile? That like
No, because there was actually one several years before, like probably my first or second year at
the agency.
Yeah.
It
was an active shooter. Oh man, nothing like that. There was multiple cases where
like uses of force and stuff like that. But
oh man, we foot chased and tased and fought and literally on a regular basis, almost daily.
You get really good at writing reports, but you said a few years earlier there was an active shooter.
Yeah, it was at a hotel, and at this agency's in the jurisdiction. They had a big New Year's Eve gathering, and unbeknownst to the off-duty people, they didn't know there was going to be this many people here, and not just people, but a bunch of gang members. It ended up being like a big gang party.
So wait, they hired off-duty for what? Just to hang out as presence?
Well, so the facility had to hire because they were having an event. So so the facility was in charge of or responsible for hiring off-duty.
So they hire. So for the civilian listeners, off-duty is an opportunity for local law enforcement officers to pick up overtime shifts, if not better. Because I think current rate for you guys is what, 100 an hour?
Shit, I wish. I think it's.
We're up to 60, 70.
I want to say it's maybe 70.
Yeah, so $70 an hour
60,
to just
70,
normally hang out.
Yeah.
Normally.
But because of other issues, they can't get anybody to work for 60 or 70. So they ends up going to 75, 80, 90, sometimes even $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Because they need it and want it that bad, they're willing to pay for it.
Yep.
So So there was only 2 officers for a crowd of, I mean, if you can imagine a larger size hotel with a ballroom or ballrooms, the place was packed, like to the brim packed. And there was a whole 2 officers working that off-duty gig.
Oh my God.
So
you know what they're probably thinking is like, what the fuck did I sign up for?
And they even put it out there like, hey, just so you guys know, we had no clue there's gonna be this many people here, and we're by ourselves. So if we scream for help, come with multiple people, right? And that's exactly what happened. There ended up being this huge fight. I actually had a ride along at the time, which was the ride along is somebody I know, so I know what their thoughts were on it afterwards. But talk about an experience, right? From somebody who had no clue what was going on.
We don't have to say who it was. Was it a family friend or?
It ended up being, well, she was a girlfriend of mine at the time.
Oh,
yeah. So
I didn't know that's allowed.
Who knows? Who knows if it was or wasn't? But
the sergeant signed off on it.
Yeah, because they all had to be approved back then. They still do, but
yeah.
So anyway, so when I pulled up, I remember, I mean, to this day, I remember pulling up at the front doors, and it's one of the those doors that motion detection, and so they slide open. But the whole place was, I mean, there was people shoulder to shoulder just brawling, and I mean, just hands thrown everywhere, furniture being thrown everywhere, people running in, people running out. And I remember thinking, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. So I'm like, stay in the car, lock the doors, do not get out. And if anything bad happens where your life is in danger, press this button. And, I told her the emergency button.
Yeah.
But I said, do not get out unless I come to the car and get you out, or another officer. But so anyways, I get out, have my baton with me, and there are people just running.
Wooden Koga stick.
Oh yeah.
That fucking thing's so stupid.
Just running at me, towards me, and I'm using my stick to kind of like, be a barrier in between people running. I don't know if they're running towards me to attack me. I don't know what they're doing, but either way, I'm like, this is out of control. Like literally stuff flying everywhere. So we get it under control.
Just imagine like a house party gone wrong.
It's kind of what it was. It was just a big house party. So we get under control, and we're just kind of hanging out because some of the people who were there were actually staying at the hotel. They had, booked rooms.
Yeah.
So there were still some of the problems that were staying there. So we were just hanging out, just trying to keep the peace, make sure nothing kicked off. We're sitting there hanging out in the foyer. And all of a sudden we hear pop, 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 pop. And we're like, was that gunfire? And we're like, yeah, I think it was. So of course we immediately just run up the stairs. So we're like, run up the stairwell. We're just making 4 by 4 by 4 by 4. And it's a multi-floor hotel. I mean, it's a big hotel.
Yeah.
And we're seeing people running down. So it's clearly they're nothing in their hands. So we're not too concerned, but they're running down. They're like saying they're shooting up there. They're shooting up there. So we keep going up. We run to somebody else. Hey, they're still up. So we're running up, and we're doing it tactfully. Right? We're not just sprinting up. I mean, we got to clear the stairwell at the same time, but get there in a hurry. So we're running up.
As you're running up, is there more shooting?
No, we couldn't hear any more rounds being fired. So we get, I don't remember what floor it was, but it was one of those ones where the staircase, so it has the landing, a staircase, half floor.
Yeah.
It has the landing again, and then another set of stairs, so it butt hurts back. So you can see, and it was an open staircase, so you can see the people who are running down or coming up. So we can hear a bunch of footsteps running this time, and the officer in front of me is on the landing already, and I'm 3, 4, 5 steps down. And we look up because we hear all this pitter patter, and this dude has his hand in his jacket crossways, right? Not in his jacket like this, but in his jacket across his body. And he stops and literally looks at me. I mean, we complete eye contact. And he's like, oh, fuck. And I'm like, show me your hands, show me your hands. Well, he then turns around. And as he goes back up the stairs, he goes out of my view. But as he gets up to the landing, I'm starting to come up, but the other officer's already kind of around in the corner. And the dude points the gun like this.
Yeah, like over his shoulder.
Underneath him. So
yeah.
basically, yeah. So you're like doing like
under his shoulder, but underneath. Back towards you. So
the officer shoots him, ends up shooting him at least once, obviously. But so he's down, and by the time we get up there, the gun's literally laying 3 feet from him. So we end up having to clear that, and then we had to clear the rest of the floor because that's actually where the shooting was going on originally.
Yeah.
So
any of the victims?
No, not that we ever found out or knew about. But yeah, I think they were just they were just shooting at people and didn't hit anybody, or they were
self-administered to the hospital later,
yeah,
or
who knows.
Dude, one thing I never really noticed is like that home remedy. Oh, I got shot on the kitchen table, and somebody stitches people up. That's a real thing.
I'm sure it is.
That's a real thing in the ghetto.
There's been a few cases of that.
Yeah. I mean, they normally show up at the doctor's office a few days later. They're like septic.
Yeah, it only lasts for a few days usually, but
yeah. Damn.
But that's probably my two.
How'd you feel administration wise? So were you put on leave at all or anything else like that?
I was put on leave. I know for sure. I'm pretty sure I was for both of those. And at the time, it was one of those. You're obviously, because of my role, I wasn't too concerned about it.
Yeah.
But you're still concerned about it because you just never know what the mentality is of admin, right? Like, are they going to be taking this above and beyond and overboard? And
this is 2019 that this shooting happens in the hotel.
No, that was probably 2011.
Okay,
that was a year or two after.
So this is probably an important thing to focus on is 2011. Hands up, don't shoot hasn't happened yet.
Correct. So that one was.
So what's your mentality at that time? As like a little worried, but
not that worried because
right.
You felt like you had the support and I'm trying to think of the term here. Well, not the support from the admin, but the support from the citizens as well.
Right.
Like, and to me, it should have been, and it was a clear, like obvious. This is a good shoot.
Right. You want to know my thoughts? Hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
They shot him in the back.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
right.
And these days, that's what
my initial like. Ugh.
Yep. And these days, that's exactly what would be the story. At least what the news would put out there. At least what the activists would be telling everybody.
Yep.
Oh, they shot him in the back.
Yep.
For no reason. He didn't even have a gun.
Right. They planted the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever the angle they want to work.
Yeah. And
that's my initial like shock.
I don't remember if we even had body cameras back then.
2011, probably not.
So yeah,
probably not. Vive really didn't become a thing until there were some brands, but they weren't good.
Yeah, and that's what we had in the beginning.
Vive, yeah, that's what we started out with in Durham. But I started in 2016. Yeah, so going on 8 years now. And then I was in the military in 2014, 16 police force.
Yeah.
So, so that's one incident that happened was it Ferguson? That's the hands up, don't shoot, which got proven wrong.
Correct.
He was actually charging the police officer. But again, taking the image of a white officer against a minority suspect and the media's ability to somehow change that.
Yep.
And, it's bewildering to me. People think like I practice jujitsu pretty frequently, and I'm not a ninja, right? There's no magic touch that I can do to stop you.
Like in the movies, right?
Yeah, I'm not John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
John Wick gets his ass whooped almost in every single movie.
But he still wins.
I'm not John Wick.
No.
I'm just not. If you want me
Nobody
to be...
is.
Dude, and this is the thing that I tell people, is if you want me to be some like Navy SEAL, Delta Force dude that can kill people with my hands and subdue them with my hands and all this other magic stuff that they do, send me to their training. Yep. Be more than happy to attend. More than happy.
Yep.
But even with that training, I guarantee you they probably would shoot most people if they're in a similar situation.
Yeah. And all of that, but they got to send me. They got to send all the other.
Yep. Every single police officer.
Yep. Good luck with that.
And retraining. Continued training. Yep. I was just talking to Colt about this, or maybe it was Kyle, but I find it really frustrating the lack of training law enforcement gets, and then to be blasted on the news like we're some James Bond, fucking John Wick person when we're not. Dude, I'm 190. How much do you weigh?
I'm down to 197.
Still wouldn't fight you. You want to know the weight that I would fight, that I could comfortably look at somebody and be like, yeah, I could take you?
150.
160. Yeah. And that's without cauliflower ear, right? Like I look at you and feel comfortable. Yeah. Knowing like, oh, I have such an advantage on this person. I'm not worried about it.
Right.
You start getting 170. If you're 160 and you got cauliflower ear, I'm like, nope. Nope. You could be 135 and have cauliflower ear, and I'm like, you might take my back. Next thing you know, out cold. So it's just this like, it's this aspect that I think the media just really pushes, and it doesn't. I don't think they take into consideration our anxiety.
Well, they don't take into consideration any human realistic traits, right? Like they have to assume. It's the only thing I can go off of. Is they have to assume that we have all that training you're talking about. Yeah. They have to assume that we are somebody like a John Wick, even though John Wick is it's
a fictional character that gets shot multiple times.
Right. But unfortunately, they see all these things and they put it all into one basket, so to speak. And they go, "Oh, you're not that guy? Well, you should be."
Yeah.
Or they go, "Oh, well, you only get X amount of hours of training." Well, a barber has to do more hours of training than that, and we're like, "No, they don't."
No.
I mean that's one of the most popular rebuttals they come up with.
Well, dude, if you want training, this is what gets me. You want training? Where's the staffing?
But it's definitely not here now.
It's not there.
Because they've run everybody off.
Yes. And are we making decent money here in Colorado? Yes. Do I think we should be making more? 100%. I think the average salary of a veteran officer, so 5+ years, should be anywhere between 135 to 140 for the Colorado area.
Yeah, for
based on cost of living and everything else like that.
Yep.
To have to be compensated for the time that you're giving and the dangers you're putting yourself into.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like I said, if you called me tomorrow, if anybody's listening to this and can pay for my training in whatever special forces you want to send me to, I'd be more than happy to attend. It at the end of the day, that's not feasible for every officer.
Nope.
But every officer,
for multiple reasons,
right? But every officer is going to be held to that standard,
correct? To
the Hollywood-esque standard of, I would argue, John Wick, because there's a lot of tumbling, there's a lot of throwing people down. Like, does he shoot him at the end? Yeah, but what do they want to see? They want us to tumble these people magically and then jump on top of them, wrestle their arms out, and handcuff them. roll them over and say, hey, where are you hurt?
As if it's so easy.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody ever makes difficult to even put handcuffs on, bro. Like, literally just to put the handcuffs on sometimes in a fight in itself is...
Well, that's where I would argue, like, I do appreciate Gracie's style of arresting is, like, they say let him cook. Like, shouldn't fight people in the handcuffs. But, dude, after a while, I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm literally sitting there, I'm like...
And that's you who...
Oh, I work out 4 times a week.
Is in good shape.
Yeah, I work out 4 times a week. I go to jiu-jitsu when I'm on. I've taken some time off because of the head colds and everything, and people hear me coughing. I've taken some time off, but I go twice a week.
Right.
You know, and that working out 4 times a week is abnormal for police officers. Yeah. And I don't get compensated for it. Yep. Right. The thing is, in the military, I had time in the day to go work out. I don't get any time to go work out when I'm working. Why? Because the citizens expect me, as soon as they pick up the phone, for me to respond.
Yeah.
And that's, in my opinion, it's like this double standard where they're like, I want this out of you. I want you to be this person, but you're not giving me any of the resources that I need.
Correct.
And for me, that's what causes a lot of like the annoyance, the frustration is like, I want to be the person you want me to be. I want to be that John Wick. I don't think I'll ever obtain it, but I will 100% give my all effort to be that person every single day I go to work if you give me the things I need. Yeah. And I'm not getting the things I need, and that's frustrating. So, involved in that, fast forward, Ferguson happens. What's your mentality in law enforcement at this point? Senate Bill 217 hasn't happened yet. This is probably 2015, I think, 2014.
I think you're starting to see, at least from my point of view, you're starting to see officers going, you kind of have two sides here. One, that's in another state. It's not going to affect us here. Keep doing what you're doing. 2, nope. That could easily be you. That could be me. That could be you. That could be you, whoever, right? It doesn't matter what state you're in. Why are we doing this anymore? And I heard both sides, right? Like I heard not only from local agencies.
When you say doing this anymore, what do you mean? Proactive stuff?
Yeah, proactive. Doing what you have to do to protect yourself, and knowing that what you're doing is legally and morally justified.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what people think, because those people aren't in your shoes. They also don't know.
Well, it's Graham v. Connor 101, dude.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Objectable reasonableness. It doesn't matter what Joe Schmo off the street thinks. It matters what a reasonable officer with the same amount of training, same amount of, like, a cookie cutter person of you would do in that situation.
Right. But that's also where that reality and common sense, policing and thinking and mindset started going downhill, is because then it became public opinion. You were now being judged on public opinion and who can scream the loudest and say, well, that's not what happened. Those officers should have done X, Y, and Z. Or, he's lying about what happened. This is actually what happened. When in reality is one, they're not in your shoes to know what was going on and what was being said and done and how you should react. 2, how you can legally treat things and handle yourself. But 3, what the other person was actually doing. Because as we know now, right, that whole situation was found to be false. As far as what was being portrayed.
Yep. And what's alarming to me is that I don't think there's much bribery going on, but there's bribery in the sense that some of these people are politically appointed.
Oh, absolutely.
And elected. Not appointed. I should say elected.
Both.
Right. And they have a interest in listening to the public, even if the public is wrong.
Yep.
This George Floyd incident that's more recent is one that's pretty alarming. And I'm not trying to exonerate the officer and what he did. I think he went condition black. I think he was in that situation, and he was, for a while, he was looking around. But even so, not just the knee on the shoulder neck area, right? Because he was originally in the car. George Floyd was in the car, became unresponsive, was removed from the car, and then put back out in the ground. Is that not correct?
No. And honestly, have you watched The Fall of Minneapolis?
No. Is it on Netflix?
Yeah. No, it's YouTube.
Okay. But so what I want to get to
say is watch it.
Okay, I'll watch it. But what I want to get to is like the autopsy, the official autopsy showed that he had a failing heart, clogged arteries, multiple drugs, and a fentanyl dose that would kill people.
Absolutely. And you'll see in that the Fall of Minneapolis documentary that the coroner says that had he been found by himself, like he had been found in his house by himself, they would have ruled an OD because of the levels of drugs and the heart conditions and everything else he had going on, right? This was not...
But he's a healthy man.
According to everybody else.
According to the media and everything else. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's absolutely bonkers.
And of course, that's what people jump on. That's what the family and activists and whoever wants to push their own agenda, that's what they push out there.
Money.
And people believe it. And that's the sad part, is people believe it as if it's the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's more of that public opinion. So then he goes to trial, and you'll see more of that stuff of what truly happened with his trial in this documentary. But
isn't he appealing?
Yes, and as he should. And you'll
see.
Well,
dude, he almost got killed in jail.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, bro, who is that? I want to talk about it because it just recently came out in the news. But then it's going to tell what agency you work for. Because he sued the agency here in Colorado for his back pay and then quit.
Oh no, there was no lawsuit.
Okay, but he got back paid.
Yeah.
The amount of money Chauvin's looking at, I'm not even going to say if, I think when he's exonerated, because
it's up to the Supreme Court now, because they appealed it to the Minnesota State Court, Supreme Court, and they upheld the ruling. So now he's appealing to
under what though, dude? Like the evidence of the trial,
dude.
It's like Fruit of the Poisonous Tree, right?
Go watch I'm telling you.
Is it not?
It's even worse.
Is it not though? Is it not Fruit of the Poisonous Tree? If I stop you illegally and I go through all of this illegally, or even present bad evidence with malintent,
and all it takes is one thing.
Yeah.
One thing.
The rest of the fucking case is thrown out.
Yep.
If I forget to read you Miranda rights and I say, hey, like, what's up with this bag? Like, dude, that's the one thing that gets me in law enforcement. Like when I'm training new people and they pull out drugs and they're like, what's this? I'm like, don't answer that. I literally look at the suspect and I'm like, I start acting like their lawyer. I'm like, pause, don't answer that. Don't ask that. We never asked that. Don't ask that. Stop. I'm like, you got to read a Miranda before you just ask, like, what's this? Now, if you hold it up and you flick it and they're like,
oh, that's just Coke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just Coke, or that's so-and-so's cocaine.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Spontaneous utterance, right? Yep. But when they pull it out and they're like, what's this? And I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude. So in our cases, that shit gets all thrown out. But when the law enforcement officers tried, we're going to make some exceptions here. Well, and we're going to accept this autopsy instead of this autopsy.
Like I'm telling you, wait till you watch this documentary. It's going to be even more obvious. You're going to be like, how this case does not get appealed and approved. The appeal doesn't get approved.
Yeah.
The fact that the state courts didn't approve it is beyond me. Beyond me.
Yeah. And I'm not saying Chauvin's like a great person. I don't know the man. Right.
Well,
but I live in America. And the last thing I checked, we have a fair and due process.
You're supposed to, but that's also what is discussed in this. When there's other information that's put out that's factual, that was never put out.
So you had firsthand experience of a George Floyd-esque situation here in Colorado.
Yep.
How did that feel? Because the situation was a little bit different. It didn't happen immediately after. How did that feel when you got the news that something was coming back up?
Obviously, because of what we talked about with how times have changed, and there's a huge lack of common sense and realism and whatever other terms you can think of. It's obviously it was very concerning. It still is to this day. I mean, it's one of those things where you realize how close you were to becoming a political pawn, so to speak. You know, you were that close to being somebody who they were going to use to throw to the wolves to get some sort of justice for their, in reality, because and I can say this for a fact. The reality is there's a very small minority of the population who still doesn't realize and who still screams the loudest and gets these politicians and people in office and, you know, higher ups to do things they shouldn't be doing just to appease them. So it makes you realize like how close you were to being the next, so to speak, Derek Chauvin or whoever, to be a political pawn for somebody's agenda, for some groups, you know, whatever. And it's disturbing. And I have no doubt that that's a huge part in why people don't want to be cops anymore. It's because everybody's seeing how quick it can easily be any of us. It doesn't matter what state you're in, who your leadership is. Because even if you have a state, right, who's very supportive,
Texas,
for example, of their law enforcement, they're very supportive of doing the right things, and as long as you're legally and you know justified in all the manners you can possibly be justified in, right, they're going to back you. You know, and they should, because if you're justified in doing what you're doing, you should have support. It doesn't matter what the public opinion is.
You're right.
But all it takes is a federal agency who's controlled by certain groups who don't want to support that, and they want to appease their voting population or the people that they were sworn in to represent. You know, they're going to push for something else, and then lo and behold, you're facing scrutiny and potentially charges from somebody higher than what you can control.
Yeah. I don't know where this goes because I feel like the cracks in the foundation have already been formed. The vulnerabilities and the exploits have already been discovered. And it's a game. It's a chess move that has been shown to work. And it's very hard to move away from something that has results. Right?
Yep. I would agree.
In your situation, when you went through it, the initial thoughts, and then moving into the long-term mental health aspects, not only on the job, but off duty. I'm assuming they weren't great.
No, not at all. And I would say same thing with the military. We kind of have the same mindset in the police, law enforcement world of you need to deal with your issues and just get over it. You know, it'll pass. It'll be fine. You know, you're fine. And granted, like at the end of the day, I was right when it comes to legal stuff, right? Like I didn't get wrapped up in that aspect of it.
Right. But you were a witness.
But I was wrapped up into it in every other sense.
Yeah.
Right. So which, like you said, ends up affecting, and it did affect my career and affected my home life. But it's one of those things where a lot of times you don't realize it because you're kind of taught, and you're kind of the persona is like, nah, you're fine. It's not a big deal. You'll figure it out, you know, or you have to put it off as if you're not bothered by it, or you don't want to tell anybody that it truly is bothering you, right?
Yeah, because you're seen as weak.
Yeah, and it got to the point to where, for me, it got to the point to where I would still mention it to my wife at the time and be like, this is concerning. Not only this situation specifically, but it's concerning about where this is going to go for my career. Like, do I want to keep doing this profession? Because this came out of nowhere,
Yeah.
right?
2 years later.
So who's gonna say that this can't happen again, right? And I could be completely justified in anything and everything I do or did, but if it fits the narrative, if it fits somebody's agenda, they don't care. Your career means nothing to them. Your life means nothing to them, right? So is this something that a lot of that weighs on you? Is my point. And even though you may share a little bit with your, like, in my scenario, she never knew the full extent of how much it bothered me and weighed on me.
Your
right?
wife at the time.
Yeah. And not knowing how much it was actually affecting me, I didn't even realize it.
Right.
Right. Because in my mind, it's gotta just keep pushing along. Just, put it behind you, keep moving forward, do what you got to do, press forward, don't worry about it, be fine. And then next thing you know, you're like, well, now she's not happy, now she's leaving, so what? And everything started falling apart, right? And got removed from K9, got started being targeted, based on what agenda a specific person or persons were trying to push.
Right.
Even though I had a very minor role, like I said, wasn't charged, wasn't, but to them, I was somebody they could show to the public, look what we're doing.
Make an example of,
make an example of,
and I know you're a faithful guy, and I am as well. And it's like you read why truly the Jews crucified Jesus, and it was to make an example of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the whole purpose of crucifixion back in the day, was to, like, oh, there's a thief, there's a murderer,
this is what happens if
this is what happens if you do this. So the term, like, I feel like I'm being crucified, because I know that's thrown around in law enforcement a lot,
mm-hmm.
I think is very true.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's true. I think it's something that, at my point in my career, I'm 8 years in, I am looking at, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to move into leadership positions, because I want to make sure the future of law enforcement is not that way.
Sure.
Right. I want to make sure the people that are going through it, like, yeah, people mess up. That's fine. They're still people. You don't have to discount them as a person if they mess up. But that crucifixion is what worries me in law enforcement.
And more so now than probably any other time I can ever imagine or think of.
Well, I got in 2016 and, things were already scrutinized. But the support that I felt from an administration was nice.
Yeah. And that helps. I mean, it absolutely does help. I mean, because I will say, like, and I experienced some of that at one of the other agencies.
Mm-hmm.
They had their own issues as well. And there was other things that I just wasn't willing to
concede
or deal with,
yeah,
especially long term. But there were other aspects where, even in the state of Colorado and the state that it's in, there's still some, I guess, almost solace in law enforcement in a sense, because you have the support of, for the majority of the citizens. There's always those that
don't like us.
All right. And that's anywhere. But for the most part, you have support of the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but in every aspect. But for the most part, it's better than other places.
Yeah.
Especially here. It's kind of, and unfortunately, I think what the whole state has created with SB 217 and examples of certain scenarios that have happened here.
Yeah, the mandatory reporting of use of force is not a bad thing. It's just how it's written.
Yeah.
The spirit of the law is great.
Sure.
The letter of the law puts a lot of pressure on me every single day and makes me stressed out every single day for actions that they're not mine.
Right.
Like, they don't care about perception. Like, that's the thing that bothers me about 217. Like, I might see something and be like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't, like, whatever I observed did not appear to be over the board,
Yeah.
And then, Citizen Review Board reviews it and it's like, this is absurd. He punched him one additional time after his hand was finally freed.
Right.
But from my perspective, I didn't see that. But because I didn't report it, I'm getting screwed now.
Yeah, no.
Like, the spirit of the law is great. The letter of the law holds me responsible for actions that aren't mine, that I might not even have a full perception of.
Right.
And that's what I have an issue with.
Well, not only that, but kind of what we mentioned earlier is it's easy to sit back as people who are watching a video, sitting behind their computer, doing whatever and going, oh, you see that? But were you that guy who was in that fight? Were you that guy who was in there in that stressful situation and had to make those decisions?
Yeah.
Was that you there, or was it you sitting behind your computer Monday morning quarterbacking? Now, and to me, there's a difference between that and the egregious, obvious violations.
Yes.
Right. I think anybody, including other cops.
But even with that, because I think we're talking about maybe a similar situation that happened at a certain agency. The fact that people think that a mental break can't happen with an individual officer, once again, changes the perception of an officer into this robot of a being that has no personal experience whatsoever.
Sure. Well, and that's kind of gets into what I've talked to people before, civilians wise, right? When they bring up certain scenarios, I thought, I'll watch this video. What do you think? And I'm like, not knowing the facts of the situation, right? Not knowing who this officer is, what he's experienced, what kind of mindset he was in.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? It is very hard for me to sit here and say that And what's accused of this officer or officers in these scenarios is, oh, well, he's a bad cop. He's a racist cop. He's this, he's that, he's that. I'm like, you don't even know this guy or this girl, right? You don't know anything about them. Like you probably don't know them from Adam, right? So let's not judge for one. But two, let's consider the things that could come into play, right? Not every officer that does something is doing it intentionally, right? Despite what people may say, and I've heard this exact verbiage said before, is, oh, well, you go to work every day looking to kill somebody. And I'm like, do you really think that, granted, I'm sure there are human beings out there that wake up and go, I want to kill somebody today. To say that that's not even a thing is, it would be a lie, because it is a thing.
Right.
But
well, I would, because I've experienced that drive to kill people, but it was terrorist.
Different.
100%
Yes.
different.
Yes.
And when I went into law enforcement, I remember when I started this job, the only person I would ever, like, I when I started this law enforcement career, I literally prayed and I was like, please, for my entire career, don't ever put me in a situation where I have to kill somebody.
Correct. And I would say that 99.9% of cops, especially once they have the reality check that they should be getting, like in the academy, because a lot of people don't know what policing is about until they actually get in and do it.
Yeah.
They watch cops, they do a ride along or two.
Yep.
They get told by...
They listen to this podcast?
Yeah.
No.
Whoever.
This podcast is pretty enlightening.
But, they have this perception of policing that it's not even close to reality.
Yeah.
It's and again, it's different when you're sitting back and you're not in that position and you're going, that sounds interesting. I might want to do that. Let's go look into this. Let's go talk to this person. You're like, I can do that. And then you get some exposure, right? You get the academy. That's controlled environments. You're safe. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to die, right? You're like, oh. But even some people can't even handle that. They can't even handle the reality of, okay, so you're telling me that I might get shot and that I might lose my life? Yeah, I'm out. I didn't realize that.
They quit.
Right? They can't handle the stress or the, they can't handle the stress of even some minor things that they go through, right? Much less stuff they're not even truly experiencing in the academy. So they let's just say they make it through, and then they come out on the road and they start experiencing real life stuff. And then it becomes reality to them. Like, this is real life.
It's a make or break moment. Yeah, for sure.
If I make the wrong decision, I could lose my life. And now it's becoming, if I make the wrong decision, or let's just say I make
I believe. So this is the best way I've ever explained it. If I make a decision that I believe is the best decision, it's perceived legal. Yep. It's definitely moral, meaning I'm making a moral decision, and for sure it's moral, and it's in good faith.
It could still
ruin your life,
put you in prison for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Whereas that used to never cross people's minds, because they just, when I first started, like, I say never crossed your mind. It was a very, very small portion of concern, because you just knew that people understood that in stressful situations, everybody's different, right? Like, you handle stress differently than I handle stress, and from the next person, the next person, the next person. Training matters, experience matters, stuff like that matters, right? But nobody knows. You don't get to pick and choose what call you go on. You don't get to pick and choose.
Well, now I do.
Kind of. But you don't get to.
But most officers, yes, officers in general.
My next point is, you don't get to pick and choose who you're going to come in contact with.
Yeah. Because
that person that day may choose violence.
Yep.
And you don't know that till you get there.
And they might not even show you.
Right.
Might just be a normal conversation like this, and then Boom.
And then, but that's when they choose. But they knew that before then.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize that, and all that to say, just because an officer makes a decision does not make him wrong. It doesn't make him racist. It doesn't make him. It just means that that's the decision he chose, and some of that can be based on how they handle stress. It can be based on their training and experience. It can be based on a multitude of things. Yeah. Like you said, what are they doing within their personal life that nobody knows about?
Yep.
Or what about stuff that they do know about, but it gets blown off? You know, there's a multitude of things that come into play with how another human is reacting to and handling a situation.
Yeah. With other humans.
Right. So just because they made that decision and something bad happened does not make them wrong.
It doesn't make them a bad person either.
Correct. But society, certain ones in society specifically, will use that and turn it around on them as if they're the worst human being ever. Like, ever.
And this is an olive branch, right? Just because someone's a criminal and they do something wrong doesn't mean that person's wrong forever.
Correct.
There are certain heinous acts, though, that I think fall in the category of, like, you should never be able to be back out in society. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to spend 30 plus years thinking about what you've done, and maybe after 30 plus years, you can come back out. But for the most part,
here's my take on that, though, too, is I think the difference between what we do and what criminals are doing is criminals
isn't a good word for what I'm describing, because criminals have some sort of premeditation.
Well, that's what I was getting at, is those people elect and they choose to do those actions.
Right.
They weren't just out in the middle of public one day, and all of a sudden somebody approached them and they were forced into the decision to do something to act.
No. Right? I'm talking about, like, you're at a grocery store and some dude, says a racial slur behind you. And so, like, and this has actually happened in North Carolina. Mm. A black male sitting there checking out, and some white dude behind him calls him the N-word. Black guy turns around, clocks him in the face. Who gets there to take the report? Me. And the black guy's saying, I know you're going to arrest me. Just go put me in handcuffs. I was like, whoa, hold up. What happened? And he explains what happened. I was like, there's freedom of speech. What he said wasn't right. I'm going to write you a citation. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking you into jail. I'm not going to book you or anything else like that. This is really up to a judge to decide.
Right.
What happened to the case? Dismissed. Immediately. Do I have a job to uphold because of the criminal statutes?
Right. And you did.
100%.
Nothing says you have to take him to jail.
Right.
On that particular
case. Yeah.
There are some that unfortunately state that.
And I explained that to the guy up and down. I was like, listen, sir, like, by law, I have to do that. Like, there's certain discretion that I have. Mm-hmm. And this guy wants to prosecute. By law, I can't be like, no, we're not going to prosecute. If I didn't have evidence, sure. But, like, you're saying you did it. He's saying you did it. There's camera video footage of you doing it. There are witnesses here saying that he said what he said, even though he's denying it. Like, I think you've got a good justification.
Right.
And obviously it played itself out in court, but
yep.
Yeah. So criminals is not a good term to associate what we do and make mistakes.
Yeah. And you're right about that. Like, that's a different perspective, but yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, legit criminals. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't even have a problem with us being, like, charged if it didn't affect our livelihood. But if we get charged with something, even if we're not convicted, I'm pretty sure it nullifies our credentials.
Well, and at minimum,
yeah,
even if it doesn't, right? And you're right, it shouldn't if it does.
Right. We should be held innocent until proven guilty in court, but a lot of times you're placed on admin leave without pay.
Well, and then what the other aspect of that is your personal life.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is, as we know, somebody doing a CORA or whatever it's called, CORA request to
Freedom of Information, or
and then they can find out who's been involved in what.
Yep.
And you have to release it, right?
Yep.
As a department or as a city. So the next thing you know, you're on the news.
Yep.
And so what does that do to you?
The court of public opinion's a bitch.
Yep. So, but that's the sad thing is that that's a prime example of it may be nothing in reality, right? But now the right or wrong people, so to speak, get in touch with this, so they get a hold of this information. They start blasting it out in their own versions, in their own. And next thing you know, the pressure's on the people who were basically originally going, this is a to do nothing. Like he did nothing wrong. Now all of a sudden they're like, well,
hold on a minute. Let's reopen this case.
Actually, we do need to give you something because we can't just let you go free for that. And
because this group is telling us otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you're seeing a lot of these days is admins who, and it's not just here. I think it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You're seeing admins who
cater.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that understands why they're doing it because they don't want to be.
There's been such a bad history in law enforcement of shielding bad officers. And that was the case, I would say probably 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. And like you said, when you got in, it shifted.
Sure.
You probably observed some stuff. Bro, back in the day, if somebody showed up to a diner and they were drunk, they'd be like, all right, come on, Steve, get in the car. We'll drive you back. Go ahead and use a sick day today.
Yep.
But for me, 2 weeks into law enforcement, seeing this and being like, I don't know what to do. I think he's drunk. And my FTO basically being like, yeah, you're new. You stay out of this. I'll take care of this. And have him be held accountable. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a special unit, got pulled from that unit, but given the mental health help, right? Yeah. That accountability is huge, you know, and I think I agree with you. I don't completely disagree with what they're doing, but it's just how they're doing it. It's how they're going about it. And the culture that they're forming now, I don't think is beneficial for the future. We'll wrap this up with a simple question. If you had to talk to your younger self, would you convince him to go into this line of work?
That's not a simple question.
It is a simple question. It's yes or no.
No, it's not.
It wouldn't be a good podcast if it was a bunch of yes or no questions.
But. At least for me, I'm sure some people may say otherwise, but I honestly don't know how to answer that question because I go back and forth every single day with asking myself that question. Not only would I have done it when I started, knowing what I know now, but do I still keep doing this? Right. So I struggle literally every single day with that I made the right decision and am I making the right decision?
As far as just occupation.
Yeah. And there are times where I'm like, absolutely. I mean, I still love what I do. I still enjoy getting into this and doing what I wanted to do when I got into this. But then there's those days where you're like, it's too risky. It's not worth it. It's, like I said earlier, like it could easily, and it doesn't matter what call it is. It could be something that could be what you deemed as one of the easiest calls that you can possibly come across. Next thing you know, you're in a situation where now you're in the news. Yeah. Your life, both personal and career wise, is being destroyed. And I feel like I've kind of experienced that. I did.
Yeah. I would say you
not to the full extent.
Well, you narrowly escaped
certain aspects,
like a riptide.
Yeah.
You know, you felt some of it.
Yeah.
But you swam to shore.
Yeah.
Instead of getting sucked out into the sea.
Yeah, for sure.
And then hoping for a boat to come by and pick you up.
But those are the cases and those are the times. And that's the thing I go back to where I'm like, that's how easy it was. Like that could have easily been me getting ripped out to sea, so to speak, like you said. I mean, I got lucky and made it through certain aspects of this, but certain aspects I didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Would you
is it worth it?
Would you tell a younger person to get into the career now?
I think my best answer to that would be, I wouldn't tell them yes or no. I would tell them my experiences. I would tell them my thoughts, and again, like, I have good thoughts. I have good experiences just as much as I have bad thoughts and bad experiences. And I'd be like, the only thing I can tell you is like, you do what you feel like you need to do. If you feel like this is something that you want to do, who's to say you can't quit and go do something else?
Do it for a few years and then quit.
You know,
it's not a lifetime thing.
No. And back in the day, I would tell everybody, dude, this is the best gig ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, I would do this. I would tell everybody back in the day. If you ask me, absolutely do this. Like, you know, even when I first got into K9, you know, like, best gig ever.
Yeah.
You know, but now you have to be super cautious about
even the K9
K9 stuff. Yeah. I mean, they're I say they're, we all know who I'm talking about, but they're taking every tool they possibly can away from us, which is contradicting what they want.
Law enforcement in general.
Yeah. So it's just super weird. It's,
hey, crack down on fentanyl and overdoses and crime, but don't do anything.
Yeah. And definitely don't arrest for it.
Yeah.
Because if you do, then we're just going to toss it out anyways.
Well, even if we arrest them, we're just going to let them sign themselves out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's
we can go
weird.
on for hours and hours and hours about just the spinning wheel of frustration in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And I might have you back on when I get this camera thing figured out and there's less issues to talk about those frustrations, because I feel like diving into them, one, not only sheds some light on the frustrations of line level, but also shares it to the public of like, if we're going to change Colorado for the better, you need to hear it from us of what is actually happening. Because like, I'll never forget, there was this one individual that had her car stolen at a certain agency when I first moved out here. And we caught the individual and they got out. She didn't get her car back because it was totaled, not from our actions as law enforcement, but from the actions of the person who stole it. This individual didn't have a lot of money. She had 2 kids, driving to school, to a better school district to put, in her eyes, give her kids a better life than she was ever given. And to have this person basically have this crime be a property crime, and not knowing the impacts that it had to this woman for, you know, the 2 weeks that her car was gone.
Right.
Kids missed school, couldn't get kids to school and everything else like that. What I'm getting at is ultimately it got pled down to a vehicle trespass, and the person did time served 10 days. And then what did the individual do again? Go steal another car.
And it's probably done it multiple times since then.
Multiple. So yeah, I'll have you back on. We'll talk about some of the frustrations. And
yeah, I'm not sure if they caught that part earlier, but like, the whole stolen car thing is a huge topic.
Oh, yeah.
Especially here in Colorado right now.
Yeah, I hope. So if you're tuning in at the very end, I appreciate you listening this long, but there are a couple of technical issues throughout. But yeah, stolen vehicles are not just stolen vehicles. They're way too often included into robberies, kidnapping, homicides.
Any kind of gun crimes.
Dude, you name it. Yeah. Like, stolen vehicles and guns are honestly, in my personal experience here in Colorado, more correlated than drugs and guns now.
Sure.
Like, if you have a gun on you, I'm more often thinking, okay, there's probably a stolen vehicle in this general area, than you're probably selling drugs. Or if you got drugs on you, I'm less likely to be like, oh, there's a gun somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, there's drugs. Probably just have drugs.
But I will say, the guns and cars, not stolen cars, are to me, just as linked as guns, cars, stolen cars, and drugs. To me, it's all three.
Yeah, it's a trifecta.
It's all
but
three.
I'm saying, like, my shift, it has shifted. Like, I'm more often associating guns with stolen vehicles.
Sure.
They're normally high on meth. The stolen vehicles that we find when they're high on fentanyl, they're normally sleeping behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Or crashed.
Yeah. And you also have the crime rings that one group was recently arrested.
Oh, and all let go. Well, they've all been let go.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think like pre-trial release or something like that, and then they just abscond. I'm pretty sure at least 2 of them. But
I know one of them was held federally because they were federally charged because they did a RICO case on them.
Oh, then they're probably held.
And then I know one of them, ICE was like, even if you do let him go, we're keeping him because he was most of the crew was illegal, if not all the crew.
Yeah, dude. Hours of content we could talk about with all this shit. Yeah. I'll have you back on. I'll get you. I'll try to grab some Buffalo Trace next time. But Matt Green, you got a little left. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks, man.
Water.